Hi guys, and welcome to yet another review, or this time around in this segment of the Forgotten Ones. I will be focusing mainly on the Celest Pandamon 2.0 and as well on the FosiAudio DS2 dongle. With regards to the forgotten IEMs, the ones that have been left behind, they are the HC Sound Heart Mirror, and also the Duno Titan S, and to a certain extent the Artti R2. The R2, although it's still relatively recent in the market, I think it's an IM that's gotten very quickly forgotten and very quickly people have moved on. And it's a perfect example of how quickly the market moves on the one hand, and two, how important it is to make and to launch very really unique products so that you can maintain your sustainability. And thirdly, it's another example of how a company which in my opinion has started off quite well. I mean, the T10 fantastic planar, the R1 fantastic triple DD, they launched the R2, a really good single DD, and now they've gotten caught up in that momentum of wanting or having to launch IMs one after the other. They launched the R3, which in my opinion is a very lackluster product, especially when it's compared to what is available at around its price. The T1 as well, the same situation. Luckily the R2, although priced at $40 something, it still has, in my opinion, enough to justify it being an alternative or a choice. And that's it. Anyway, let's get into this. The box of the DS2 is very simple, basic. It brings the cable, the actual dongle inside. Nothing really to show. As for the Pandamon 2.0, nice little box. It's the Celest style, which it's always very graphically pleasing. You open it up. And inside, again, very simple, nothing too overboard. You have a carrying case, the IEMs over there, and inside here we had a few more accessories. So simple. I mean, it is an IEM that costs around $55. This particular unit I got it from Hi-Fi Go, while the dongle is about the same situation in terms of price, $55 to $60. I'm going to talk first about the dongle, and then we'll get into the Celest with a little bit more detail. The DS2 uses the 43131 chip. The interesting thing about here is that although the 43131 is a combination DAC amp already in one chip, while the 43198 is the DAC only, and usually it's then associated with another DAC chip, which is the case, for example, you have the Snowy Night and of the M2 as well, you have from Colorfly. For some reason they have associated this definitely with another amplifier chip only. Why? Because the power output that the DS2 has is pretty impressive. I mean, we're talking about 130 milliwatts in single-ended 32 ohms, and we're talking 510 milliwatts also at 32 ohms, but in the balanced output. So although they make no mention of what is the amplifier or the specific dedicated amplifier chip they are using, definitely there is an amplifier chip here, and it definitely is a really high power affair. And the reality is this: I mean, you connect the DS2 and you compare it with some of the other dongles which also use the similar chip, the 43131, and it is quite evident, especially in the balanced output, the power difference that there is. In terms of the sound, it's got the typical Cirrus Logic kind of vibe going, although I did find that it is perhaps ever so slightly more clinical than usual, and a little bit leaner in the bass than usual. So it's not as warm as sounding as usually I find the implementations of the CS 43131. However, having said that, I found that to be true mainly or mostly when I was using the balanced output. In the single-ended output, it sounded very much like all other 43131 sound, with that nice midterm combination of being clinical like the ESS usually are, and the warmer sound that you usually find in the AKM 4493. So I would say that this is a kind of a newer interpretation of this, or a new interpretation of how the 43131 can be used. Overall, and as is the case as well many times, although it's got its, let's say, its basic kind of signature, the sound that it will put out will be very much dependent on what IEM you are using. Interestingly enough, I really enjoyed the way that this matched up with the Celest brother in here, be it the Gumiho, be it the original Pandamon, be it now the Pandamon 2. And I think one of the reasons for that is, although we know this is an SPD driver, so it's a square planar driver, so it's not a pure or a 100% a planar driver in its essence of what we are usually used to see. But this driver I found as well already, not only in the Gumiho but mainly in the Pandamon, it usually takes and needs just a little bit more power than a normal dynamic driver, and it actually helps it out to clean it up and to make the sound that then these drivers can put out become more engaging, more how can I say, more polished. And because of the amount of power that we have here on the Fosi, that match came out very nicely. I use it both in the single-ended implementation with the original cable, but I also used it in the balanced implementation. And although there were some differences that could be picked up in either connection with the DS2, with certain advantages on one setup and others on the other setup, I have to say that the DS2 really matched up very well with these two. I mean, as a reference, I used the full Snowy Night with the 43198, and I'll be very honest. I mean, the Snowy Night did confer a little bit extra more polish to the matching, to this synergy that these IEMs convey with the Snowy Night, but the difference was not as much as I was expecting on the one hand, and the fact that this has got so much power, although I'm sure I was never using the full potential of what it can do, but because it's got so much power in the balanced connection, I actually found that it made or at least to my ears, it gave me the perception that the Pandamon and Pandamon 2 were just a little bit more controlled than with the Snowy Night. I mean, it could have been just brain effect, but I really looked and listened quite a few times and went back and forth, and I could pick it up here and there on certain songs. Like, for example, one of the songs that I was the first one that I noticed. This was from Dust to Dawn from George Duke, and also the little fugue in G minor from Jacques Lessois Trio. Those two songs were songs that I could pick up exactly on what I was saying, not only with regards to the difference between the 3.5 and the 4.4 on the DS2, but how this made those songs just a little bit more, just that slam of the drum was just that little extra more incisive than with the Snowy Night. Again, let me repeat and make that perfectly clear. It was with songs here and there, and songs that I know well. That's why I was able to pick it up. It's not a huge difference. Perhaps some of you or many of you won't even pick up unless it's a song that you understand or you know quite well, that you will be able to pick up on that factor. But anyway, the reality is this: the DS2, for the $55-$60 that it costs, is a great dongle. That's the truth. I mean, in the cheaper offerings that we have in the market, it definitely is one that stands out due to first of all the amount of power that it can put out, but also because you know it does offer that Cirrus Logic type of sound, which many of us do enjoy. My apologies. As I was saying, so to wrap up here, my thoughts on the FosiAudio DS2. Really powerful little dongle, so loads of power. I mean, I momentarily hooked it up as well to some headphones, which is not something that I usually do very often, but no issues powering headphones. With the IEMs that I have, and I've got some really hard to drive IEMs as well, it did a perfect job. I mean, just the fact that this is 9 ohms is already a testament to what I've just said, and it had no issues with powering the Pandamon brothers. So loads of power, that's guaranteed. Great price. I mean, at $60, fair enough. You might prefer maybe the Duo 4X from SimGot, or you might prefer the Truth Years, the Shio, but those two focus maybe on giving you just a little extra more sound quality, but do not have undoubtedly the same kind of dynamic feel that this has. And you know, that's I think the main characteristic, or the main go-to point here on the DS2. It offers the typical Cirrus Logic sound, although depending whether or not you're using more the 3.5 or the 4.4 output, you will notice the sound to be perhaps just a little bit more clinical or less clinical. Although in both situations the sound is always a little bit thinner in the bass, more noticeable on the 4.4 output than on the 3.5. But all of these things are, I mean, they're not even complaints. They're just minor things that I picked up because of the songs that I know and that I usually use to measure and to test and to review. So it's easy for me to pick up compared to more expensive things like the M2 and the Snowy Night. Yes, these are definitely more polished products, and you can again pick up on that. But I mean, the bang for the buck here on the DS2 is fantastic. So if you're looking for a really powerful dongle, at this price point of up to $60-$70, fine. I will say that connected with my NX7, the only thing that I was able to gain was a cleaner noise floor. Okay, that's the only thing. In terms of power, to be honest, I mean, fair enough, this has got 1.1 watts, this is 500 milliwatts, half a watt, but I honestly, I couldn't max this out. This as well, I wasn't able to max it out. So it's not there that the difference will exist. And I think that pretty much wraps it up here with regards to the DS2. Talking now about the Pandamon 2. The Pandamon was is the second. The original Pandamon was the second of the Celest lineup of IEMs. The first one was the Gumiho, which was a 1+1 and had the Series 1 and SPD driver. And the Pandamon was then the usage of this Generation 2 driver, which did not require the BA to give it extension, up top. And they used, I mean, I can understand the motive and the appearance and so on, but I think that this a little bit optimistic or exuberant presentation or appearance was, I think, the biggest drawback to the Pandamon's success. Because sound-wise, it sounded really good. It wasn't as V-shaped as was the Gumiho, but the overall presentation from day one, I was very, very impressed with it. It sounded really good. It kind of gave us a harmonish style of tune with a very neutral bass presentation that was more than enough in terms of the quantity that it had. It was no bass monster by any means. I mean, compared to the Gumiho, it had less bass quantity, but the quality was definitely an improvement. And I mean, it was just a very nice IM. Its problem, I think, wasn't even so much the price, because I mean this was basically the same price as the Pandamon 2 is now originally, and you can now pick it up for as low as $30. I've seen $30 being a price where you can actually find the Pandamon 4. As now for the Pandamon 2, they've redesigned the shell, although the biggest difference is mainly on the faceplate. Let me just get here one side so you can see. As you can see, the body itself is very much the same body, same angle of the nozzle. Everything there is very much the same. I would say they even are the same size. Honestly, I cannot perceive a difference in size. What I do notice is, let me see if I can show you, is that on the Pandamon you had a venting hole there, if you look carefully, next to the L for the left, you see, okay? And now on the new Pandamon, there's no venting hole there. It's now been relocated there next to the plug, okay? But this one doesn't have it there. Okay, so they've relocated the position of the venting hole. Okay, as you can see, my apologies. Okay, and now while the original Pandamon had a metal faceplate to a certain extent, was kind of metal sandwich. This one now is a full resin shell, much nicer in its appearance. So I want to first of all applaud Celest for having gone down a more classy look. I mean, the Pandamon sounded fantastic, but it looked like a child's IM. No disrespect intended from my side when I say this, but it looked like a child's IM, and it was difficult to be taken seriously. At least, I mean, I myself, I don't really care to a certain extent, but I feel way more comfortable using something like this, which is not going to attract too much attention, than putting that in my ears. So first of all, in terms of its appearance, of the design, a much nicer product. And I think, although Celest perhaps represents the budget products from KINERA, so you have Celest, you have FosiAudio, and then you have KINERA. I think that perhaps they should have kept from day one always present that very classy, very nicely designed product as an important factor, because even though it's a budget product, that doesn't mean that a person like myself, that might go out and buy a Urd, or might go out and buy a Baldar or a Loki or a Verdandi or something, might not want to own something like this. Okay, and I prefer to have a commonality in terms of the overall aesthetic design. Anyway, aesthetically, like I was saying, the Pandamon 2 is a fantastic IM. Beautiful, nice, understated 2-pin connector. The cable is also decent enough. Nothing to be said. Fitment. I did notice that, my apologies, my phone keeps on going crazy. Let me just take away the sound so that, there we go, that's better. As I was saying, fitment is for some reason, which I really am having some difficulty grasping why. The original Pandamon, I'm able to get it to fit better, or ever so slightly better than with the Pandamon 2. Maybe it could be just me, maybe it could be the cable, but I actually swapped the cable of the Pandamon onto the Pandamon 2, and it was still happening. But anyway, let me just put that out there. The fit might be a small problem. I honestly, like I say, don't understand why, because physically the shell looks identical and so on. So and it's a problem just in keeping it in its place, because that the insertion depth is good, and when it's inside, once it's inside the ear canal, it's fine. I mean, it's really good. Isolation is decent, so can't really complain. Left and right channel balance perfect. I had no issues there as well. So at least this unit fine. I might get a second unit to confirm whether or not that QC maintains itself. Truth be told, all the products that I have up to now from KINERA and Celest and Gumiho, they've never been an issue when it came to that, so I'm sure this won't be. So that's it. Built fine, excellent even. Fitment is fine. Just that small issue that I am personally having, but not something which I would call a problem. Onto the sound, and the sound is very much what the Pandamon was. So a very nice neutralist with a slight warm presentation. The bass is not overpowering. It's all about being smooth, very quality orientated as opposed to quantity orientated. And then with that pin again, that peaks somewhere there close to the 3 kilohertz, give or take a little bit, and then it starts dropping off. What I didn't notice is that this was just slightly lower in overall level of from the mids to upper mids and treble than the Pandamon. And when I mean slightly lower, I'm talking about maybe a dB&1. So unless I get another unit of these ones, or I get another one of those and I measure, I won't even consider that to be maybe a major tuning change, but rather just variance between the two of them. But for the sake of simplicity, let's assume and let's say that yes, there has been a tuning adjustment, if for no other reason due to the difference of how the shell is now configured because of those tuning vents and so on and so forth. There's been a slight adjustment in their tuning, and what that has provided us is a sound which is, if I enjoyed the sound of the Pandamon and found it very balanced across the board, if there was any tension that I would point out was that a little bit more detailed retrieval would have been nice. This has taken that further forward. So super smooth, super relaxing to listen to. And then again, maybe just a little bit extra detail up top would have been nice. But again, that's not even a complaint. That's just my personal preference, okay? So please don't interpret that as a complaint or something which is lacking, because it isn't. What it's there, it's very well matched with the rest of the frequency. So what you have in terms of bass, of mids, of treble, how it scales, the detailed retrieval that it's capable of providing, the timbre and tonality, which is excellent, mind you. That's all fine. Soundstage is a little bit more on the cozier, closed in small venue style, not as opposed to a big huge soundstage, okay? And the imaging as well is it's fine. And I mean, I found it already. I found that on the original Pandamon, and with the Pandamon 2, I stand by it. I find that because of the way they've been tuned, these are IEMs that feel most at home when playing less complex tracks. So I personally don't think that this is something that will be at its best when it's playing rock. And one or two rock songs that I played, the more classic rock, fine. But once it got to a little bit more complicated or more hardcore rock songs, if you want to call it that way, I personally didn't feel that. Well, I wasn't enjoying it for sure. But again, like I said, because it's not a genre that I usually listen to, then I can understand that maybe I will have a different perception of what could then be the ability to handle those tracks correctly or not. However, for example, things like Carry On, A Wayward Son from Kansas was fine. I mean, nothing. I sounded fantastic. Take It Easy from the Eagles, again the same situation. The Chain from Fleetwood Mac, again it was more than adequate. What I did enjoy more listening to on the Pandamon 2, however, were things like, for example, Flow from Lynn Fidment, or Fields of Gold from Dominic Miller. So more relaxed kind of jazz, more, more acoustic stuff. This is really nice. It really, they've I mean they've done their work properly. Okay, so this has got a very specific, I would say, crowd of people that it's focusing for, or that it's trying to get to. Okay, so it's about giving a more mature sound than necessarily being capable of rattling your ears. Let's put it that way. All right. Now, to briefly compare is always a complicated word, because I don't want to say this is better than that or worse than this, but just kind of you guys get an idea of what this is going for and where it stands. Compared to the Heart Mirror, the Heart Mirror in terms of the upper mids and treble and what it has past 10k is an absolute beast. Maybe for some might even be a little bit too much, and can become even fatiguing. I personally have always found the Heart Mirror to be a fantastic IEM. I never really found it aggressive. I always considered it had more than enough bass. And when you're listening to the two of them, in terms of the bass and the mids, the lower mids and so on, they are actually surprisingly similar. It's more in the upper mids and treble where you see that it's got that little extra amount of detail, which you might prefer or not. It all depends. This is unquestionably a more dynamic sounding IEM. So this is kind of a neutralish bright, while this is a neutralish warm. Okay, let's position it that way. Compared to the Titan S, it's actually interesting, because in terms of the bass, where that is by no means a bass monster, they've got a similar kind of vibe of sound going, but the bass on there I actually prefer it. And this has got an 11mm dynamic driver, so that's actually quite good. Mids, this has just got that extra amount of detail that's missing on there. It's a very slight difference, and not on all songs it's noticeable, and that translates as well into the treble, where you find that this has just a little bit more extra treble information. Again, very similar sounding IEMs, very equally smooth and relaxed, and an IEM that's more for the vocal kind of centric fans. Okay, and then compared here to the Artti R2, very much the same situation as with the Titan S. So a very nicely presented mid range, very smooth. I mean, it's a very easy listen, but it's got noticeably more bass, especially in the sub bass. This has got that lower bass presence, that ability to rumble is a little bit better here than it is on the Pandamon 2. Again, not entirely fair to compare, but the commonality between these three, the R2, the Titan S, and the Heart Mirror, is that they're all more on the neutral end of things, and smooth end of things, although that smoothness here on the Heart Mirror, some might not agree, because it is the brightest sounding out of all of them, unquestionably. Okay, this is definitely the brightest sounding. So this is a neutral bright, this is a neutral, very ever so slightly bright, let's put it that way. This is just neutral, smooth, just like the Pandamon. I mean, very similar, the sound here between the Pandamon 2 and the Artti R2. The difference, like I said, is mainly in the bass, and this perhaps in the technicalities in terms of the sound stage, perhaps just a little bit bigger sound stage capability than the Pandamon 2. And that's it, guys. I guess I've basically said everything. Timbre and tonality, like I mentioned, is one of the things that I really liked on the original, and this one ever so more. That's basically it. There's really not much more that I can say. I mean, it's an IM that, because of its price, it's got a ton of competition. I could have taken out a whole bunch of them to compare it to, and start with that. Oh, this is better. That is no, but I think it's very clear what this, or who this is trying to focus on. It's trying to focus on those of us which are more on the smoother, easygoing listening side of things, and its main reason for purchasing. Well, that's one reason, obviously, but I think will be the fact that it's got a different technology than what the majority of the IEMs utilize. And the square planar driver is an interesting alternative to the drivers that are more commonly seen, and definitely a well implemented application here. I'm curious to see when Celest or KINERA, but probably it will be Celest. I'm curious to see when they will come out with something a little bit more serious, maybe dual drivers, dual DDs, or maybe a more complex hybrid, an SPD plus 4 DD plus 4 BAs, or an SPD plus BAs and microplanars. I'm actually very looking forward to a more complex implementation of this driver to kind of see what it can do and what it can give us. All right. Anyway, guys, I'll show you another graphs and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section here for the Celest Pandamon. Let me just clear some graphs here. Okay, let me start by showing you the graph of the original Celest Pandamon. As you can see, I mean, a very nicely done, very nicely tuned IM, very much harmonish in its tuning, peak at about 2.5k more or less, very neutralish bass. I mean, we're talking about gain in the bass of around 5.5 dB, so very neutralish, and it just sounded very nice. I mean, although there wasn't much extension up top here, there was enough for it to be very balanced and not have any apparent lack of detail or anything. But the sound, yes, was an overall more warmer sounding IM. The one I'm going to show you now is the current Pandamon version 2. I want to bring your attention to the fact that I used them both with the KB Year 07 tips for measurement, and as you can see, I mean, if I normalize it at 500 Hertz, let me just quickly show you. If I normalize it at 500 Hertz, okay, you can see a little bit of a difference there, If I normalize it at 1 kilohertz, you can see a difference a little bit all across here, a little bit of a difference there, but we're talking about like a dB and a half at the very most, and that's why I say that for me they sound basically the same. I mean, it is the same driver after all. What has changed is the shell. So if there's anything I can say is maybe my brain wants to believe that the current version is a little bit more polished, okay? But honestly, and to be totally truthful, I didn't really find any difference audibly to them. I mean, at one point I even had left side one, right side the other, and then I swapped it over, and I was never able to tell, honestly, to tell the difference. I really can't. I really cannot say more than this. So this is exactly the two Pandamons using the same tip on both of them. Okay. If you look at the stock graphs, however, they do show more differences. But I'm going to base what I'm saying on what I measured, and what I measured using my rig is this that you see in front of you. So that's that. Let me take away the original Pandamon. Again, like I just mentioned, everything sits within a very tight window, 5.5 dBs for the bass. We have a pinna gain of 7.5 dBs of pinna gain, if that. So very smooth sounding I am, unquestionably. Next one I'm going to be showing you now is the same Celest Pandamon Mark II, but with a wide bore tip. And with the wide bore tip, you get a little bit of a change here in this part of the treble and the extension. And apparently it seems the bass has gained just a little bit more. Again, I don't really honestly notice any difference between the two of them. Depending on using the KB Euro 7 tips or depending on using the wide bore tip. The next graph I'm going to show you now is the one for the heart mirror. For the original heart mirror, bass is exactly the same, pin again is exactly the same. It's just then the continued extension of the upper mids treble on the heart mirror and the detail past 10k. That's the differentiating factor which makes the heart mirror significantly more detailed, and that maybe was the reason why some people called it a little bit fatiguing and a little bit tiring after a while. I personally never found it that way. I've always found the heart mirror to be an absolute beast of an IM, and back in its day it was the heart mirror, it was the tin T2 and then the tin T2 plus, it was the blonde 03. It was this triage of three IMs which were basically dominating the budget market. The next one I'm going to show you now is the Artti R wait, no, not this one, my apologies, I put up the R1 now. Artti R2, there we go, yes, Artti R2, exactly. Artti R2, let me see if I think I've measured it with the Acme tip already. Sorry, with the, here we go, Artti R2, my apologies. There we go, that's it. That's the Artti R2, using it as well, the same AP90 AP90 deck for the measurement, and where you see the difference, like I said, is yes, you notice that there's definitely way more sub bass. The mids are both of them very nicely done, just there's more detail in terms of the upper mids and treble on the Artti, and a better soundstage, a better perception of space in the sound. But again, it's an IM which definitely follows this more smoother kind of presentation. So that's that, and then finally the Duno. At least when you see it here, you get the perception. Let me just do away here with one thing so that I have a little bit more. There we go. Take away this. The Duno, at least here, shows that it's got more bass than the Pandamon 2, and when I listen to it, no, I didn't perceive it that way. And I think it's down to the fact that the Duno also has a lot more energy in this upper mids and treble area, so it conveys a balance which maybe doesn't let the bass be as thick as it apparently is. Is the difference huge between the bass of the Duno Titaness and the Pandamon 2? No, it's not a huge difference, but it is enough in that you can notice that it's capable. It's enough. It's enough for you to notice that the Pandamon has got just a little bit more weight. Okay, but it's not dramatic. Where you do notice a difference again is that it's got the Titan's got more details, better soundstage. So again, soundstage both on the Titan S and on the Artti R2. It's where you notice the biggest difference. Soundstage, imaging, the timbre and tonality on the Pandamon is absolutely fantastic. So I've got nothing to say about that. And that's that. I believe I've showed you all. Artti, Duno, heart mirror, and then the two Pandamons. Okay. Anyway, guys, I hope I was able to set the positioning of the Pandamon 2 well, and that what can I say? I mean, if you have the opportunity to listen to it. I mean, this is an IM, like I mentioned earlier, which is going to be very specific for a crowd of people which are looking for this particular type of sound, and not necessarily an IM for, I guess, the masses. All right, guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions you might have, please feel free to ask me, and I'll do my best to reply as quickly as possible. You take care now. Bye-bye.